Hey guys, it's Katie Kate on the Homestead, and today I want to share what it actually cost for me to set up this homestead. I know a lot of people look to homesteading as a way to live a less expensive lifestyle, and I absolutely agree that that is true. So I really want this video to be encouraging and not discouraging. I think about my past self looking for information on this, and I would hate to discourage myself from pursuing this because I would be put off by some of the expenses potentially on the front end. But at the same time, I want to be transparent for anyone considering shifting lifestyles. Ultimately, living out here is less expensive than the lifestyle I had in the city, and the goal is obviously sustainability, which in my definition means just hitting net zero every month, where it's actually not costing me any of my savings to live here. Homesteading is a whole different lifestyle, and there are costs involved setting up to have what you need to make that happen. Now, the startup costs can happen as quickly or as slowly as you're able to afford, and you can just prioritize what you need based on your own situation. In my case, I was in a position to just get everything I needed in the first 2 years that I got here. So I did have a lot of startup costs, but now I'm set up for the foreseeable future. Obviously, there will be costs moving forward that are specific to this lifestyle, things like animal feed, and I'll be covering those expenses in my monthly budget reports, which will culminate at the year's end when I do a grand total and see what it is actually costing me to live here for a year. Obviously, the first thing you need to have a homestead is the property and the house. So I'll just talk about my particular situation because obviously some people purchase property and then build their own houses. In my case, I found a property that already had a 100-year-old farmhouse on it. For me personally, that was the best option. I'm on my own, and it was easier for me to purchase something that was already established than to try to just buy land and build something from scratch. I looked a long time for this property, and one suggestion that I would give if you are looking for property is to look slightly above what you think your budget might be. And the reason I say that is because for a long time I looked at a certain price range and I got outbid on all of the properties that I was looking at. It was very competitive. And once I increased my budget by about $50,000, that's when I found this house. And it was priced a little higher, and so it didn't have the same competition that the other properties had. I certainly purchased this in a seller's market, but I also sold my house in a seller's market. I do know that ultimately I probably overpaid for what this property's worth, but for my situation, it was worth it for me to do that. I was really lucky to end up with some money left over that I could put into the infrastructure initially. And so I'm going to share with you what I paid out of pocket coming here, the upgrades that I did to this 120-year-old farmhouse. This house needed a new furnace and a new hot water tank, so I replaced those. This is a brand new propane furnace that I installed. When I moved in, it was a very old oil furnace that definitely needed to be replaced and I never used. And this is a brand new hot water tank that I installed with the furnace because the old one that was here was completely rusted out. All but 3 of the upstairs windows needed to be replaced because they were old wooden windows. The downstairs windows, with the exception of one, had all been replaced with vinyl windows, but I had to replace 7 windows and 1 door in the house. The wood stoves in this house were not wet certified when I moved in, so I had to spend money repairing them and having them certified so that I would qualify for insurance. I spent about $2,000 having this wood stove wet certified so that I could get insured. This kitchen wood cook stove actually cost me about $8,000 to have wet certified, so it needed some parts It needed a whole new chimney because it wasn't to code. This chimney goes up through my bedroom, so that had to be all drywalled in. And as well, I wasn't passing the clearance for the distance from the stove to the wall. So rather than move the stove, I actually paid to have these steel panels installed as heat shields. I replaced all the appliances in the house with the exception of the dryer, just because I don't use it that much. So I bought this stainless steel convection oven and range hood, and I also bought this stainless steel fridge, which is just a really big fridge with no freezer, because I have the standing freezers out in my garage. On the list of appliances, I also bought a brand new washing machine because the one that was here was pretty old. I did not replace the dryer because it works just fine, and I actually don't use it that much because I prefer to dry my clothes either on the clothesline or by the wood stove. I bought a fair amount of equipment, everything from a riding lawnmower to an ATV. I bought a generator. I had to buy all the tools for my tool shop, things like an air compressor, a chainsaw, and then, saws, ladders, and all the tools that I was gonna need. This is my workshop and I love it. I'm really, really proud of it. And it's something I really wanted to have being out here on my own so that I can learn more about being handy, get better at building, and just be able to fix and repair things, build things by myself. And obviously I had to invest in these tools. I have a bench grinder, I have a little jigsaw, a stander, I have drills and drivers and things like crowbars and hammers and grinders, and then I have my little circular saw there, my table saw. I also have a welding setup that I really haven't used yet. I even have the fuel to go with it as well. Bought an ATV, a riding lawnmower. We've got an air compressor over here. We've got ladders. I have a scaffolding ladder system. So, all of this stuff kind of added up on the front end. I had to replace a couple of the toilets. There were also little things like new window treatments for 17 windows in the house. All of this expense is completely without the cost of living, furnishing, and decorating the house. On top of that, if you do want to have animals, you are going to have to invest a little on the front end purchasing them. I bought Rosie and I bought Joey, the boar goat, that I eventually ended up exchanging for the 2 alpine goats that I have now. I also had to build an enclosure for them. At the end of the day, I invested about $50,000 out of pocket just in upgrades in this house. That's not taking into consideration any junk removal that you may have to do on a new property, things that are just left behind by the old owners. I was very fortunate that I met my neighbors who had equipment, who brought down a tractor and helped me with getting disposal bins, loading everything in, things like landscaping. My neighbor pulled out 16 trees from my apple orchard that probably would have cost me thousands of dollars if I had to do that on my own. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the repairs that were done after the electrical fire in my house, because honestly, that ended up saving me a lot of money out of pocket, which at the end of the day, I suppose is a blessing in disguise, considering my house did not burn to the ground. Here's a list of things that were done after the fire. First, I had all of the ducts in the house cleaned. Then they sent in people who did a professional cleaning from top to bottom, which honestly the house really needed anyway. Next, the house was painted from top to bottom with really good all-in-one primer and pigment paint, and again, that really needed to be done anyway. Next, I had a brand new master electrical panel installed in the basement, which just generally makes me feel a lot safer. Because of the structural damage, I had a major structural repair and reinforcement in the house, which ultimately, again, is just good for its integrity. My masonry fireplace, which was very damaged during the fire, was completely rebuilt. And considering the costs of the wood stoves, I am sure that I saved a lot of money on that. That is not something that I would have budgeted to do. The old fireplace was just fine, but I absolutely love my new one. It is more efficient, it is my style and my taste, and ultimately it's safer. I honestly don't know what my insurance claim amounted to at the end of the day, but I can only speculate that it was probably about $100,000. Now, those fire repairs are things that I would not have done out of pocket necessarily, most of them anyway. But if I add those together with my out-of-pocket expenses, I've invested about $150,000 in infrastructure of my homestead in the last 2 years. And that's over and above my cost of actual living here, paying my bills and supporting myself while I take the sabbatical off of work. So again, this is not stuff that needs to be done all at one time or on the front end. I'm just sharing what it cost me to get this place set up, as I said, so that I really don't have any other expenses for the foreseeable future unless it's an emergency, which hopefully doesn't happen. Well, I hope that's helpful. I know that my situation is going to be different from everybody else's, and maybe you can look at some of my startup costs and consider what some of yours might be if you are thinking about setting up a homestead. All right, guys, well, it's only a few days until I film my end of January budget report, so stay tuned, and until next time, happy, healthy living. I'm Katie Kate on the Homestead, and I will see you later.